Good morning, gals. So we're going to come over to our mat and we'll curl and lay back to that nice flat back. Let's start with a little gap between our lumbar spine and the floor. And we're going to drop those shoulders down, seat the rib cage and the chest down into the body. We'll start with knees bent and feet flat, just in line with our sit bones. And we're going to brace through not only the abdominals, but also through the muscles in our mid, lower, and upper back. So we can really stabilize the spine, get a full engagement of our core muscles, front and back of the body. And we'll slightly press into that left foot so we can float the right foot up off of the mat. So you get that hamstring engagement on the back of the left leg. And we'll reach on that inhale to extend that right leg out nice and long. And then slow as you bend the knee, draw the heel back towards the hip. And we'll reach on that inhale. Inhale as the leg lengthens. Exhale as the knee bends, drawing the heel back. So these single leg extensions, nice and low to the mat. Try to find that full extension of the leg. So you're going to lock the leg out. Really lock the knee out so you feel all the muscles in the leg firing. We'll do two more on this right side, finding that length. And we'll bend the knee, place the foot flat to the mat. Pressing into the right foot a little bit so you feel the back of that right leg fire. We'll float the left foot up off of the floor about an inch or so, and then inhale to lengthen and straighten that left leg out. As the leg is straightening, we want to make sure that the hips don't shift with the leg. So the leg only is moving, and it's moving nice and slowly and smoothly from the hip. Reaching that leg out nice and long. Slow for that extension. Gliding the heel back towards the hip. One more. And we'll bend the knee, place the foot flat to the mat. Let's decompress the low back. So you're going to feel that weight evenly distributed between the hips. And on the exhale, we'll tilt the hips back to imprint the low back flat against the mat, finding that kind of hollow C curve without too much rib flare. And we're going to keep the shoulders sliding down the back as you rock back towards the tailbone. We want to press the upper back, the shoulders, shoulder blades, flat against the mat. So as the hips move, there isn't this shrug, this glide of the upper body up and down. We only want to move the hips. Nice and slow. The slower you move with any of all of our movements, the more you can tune into things that start to shift out of position. Does one side of your body take over? Are you twisting or shifting to one side more than the other? So you can slow it down to feel those imbalances so you can make little corrections while you're in the movement. One more pelvic tilt. And slow to reset back to that nice neutral spine. We'll bring our right leg up to tabletop. Again, you can have your hands at your hip bones for that feedback to see if you're getting some movement or translation up into the spine or the hips, or arms nice and long down by your side. And we're going to hinge at the hip to let the foot tap the mat nice and smooth. The knee is not moving. You've locked in that nice 90-degree knee bend, and we're not going to use the joint to find the floor. We're going to use our hip, moving the leg, the thigh away from the chest so the foot can drop towards the floor, either pointing the toes or dorsiflexed and reach with the heel. And you can play around with both positions of the foot and the ankle. Right foot comes back to the mat in line with the sit bone. Take a moment to reset the upper body, especially the shoulders. And we'll bring the left leg to tabletop. Moving only at the hip, we hinge to lower the foot, lower the leg towards the mat. We're pointing the toe. And we'll flex a little bit too. You can play around with that leg position of the lower leg at the ankle to see if you like the heel tap or the toe tap. One more. And then we'll bend the knee, rest the foot back in line with the sit bones. We're going to bring our legs up to tabletop position, arms out to a T, palms up towards the ceiling. Pull the rib cage into the body. Press the chest down against the shoulder blades to the mat. And we're going to tilt and tip to the side. Twisting through the mid-ribs, we drop onto that right hip and smooth to come back to center. Twisting on the inhale over and onto that left hip, not lifting that right shoulder. We exhale then to come back to center. Nice smooth glide from hip to hip. Really anchor your chest and your shoulder blades right across the bra line down against your mat. So as we rotate, you're not getting upper back rotation or rib flare or extension up into your mid or upper back. You want everything from the mid ribs up, cemented and connected to your mat and to the floor. One more each side. And we'll come back to center, rest the feet to the mat. Fingers will interlace. We'll bring our hands behind our head to support the head and the neck. Slide the shoulders down, pulling the underarms down the rib cage. And on the exhale, we fold at the mid-ribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. Pausing for that breath at the top, maintaining that core engagement as you reset back to the mat. As we fold, there's no movement in the pelvis, in your hips. A lot of times we'll see folks go into that chest lift and they're flexing their whole back. So they'll fold in their lift and then they get that tuck. And we want to keep the hips nice and level. So if you had that kind of saucer of water resting between your hip bones and your pubic bone, that's going to stay nice and level. So that won't spill as you lift and lower the upper half of your body, folding there at the mid-ribs. You can put some light pressure of the feet pushing down against your mat to the floor to engage up the back of the leg. Increase that stability, that connection to the floor and with the lower half of your body. One more chest lift. We hold and we lift, and we'll twist over and onto that right shoulder blade, through the center, over to the left, and back to center. Nice and smooth glide from side to side. We find that shift and that twist. Moving through the mid-ribs. Moving on to each shoulder blade, just like we did with our spine twist, moving on to each hip. Last one to the right and left. We come back to center and curl and roll down to the mat. Arms come nice and long, reaching down your sides. We'll bring our legs to tabletop. Moving into our leg changes, we're going to alternate those foot taps to the mat. Keeping the knee angle the same. We're hinging at the hip. Nice and smooth glide of the leg in the hip. Reaching the arms straighter and longer. Gliding the shoulders down the back as we knit the ribs in, both front and back of the body. We're stitching in nice and tight, pulling our abdominals to our back, keeping that even weight across the back of the hips. 2 more each side. And we'll rest the feet back to the floor. Arms reach up nice and long overhead, keeping the rib cage in and down. So maybe the arms don't go all the way to the floor. And on the exhale, arms flow forward. We fold at the midribs to lift the chest up. And slow as we reset back to the mat. Reaching the arms nice and long. We fold and lift. Nice and smooth. Drawing the shoulder blades off of the floor. A small little drop of the chin towards the chest without craning the head and the neck forward, past the collarbone. On our next one, we'll come up, we'll stay lifted. Bring legs to tabletop. Hands rest on the knees. We reach that right leg forward. We're moving into our single leg stretch. We'll alternate those single leg extensions. Keeping that chest lift nice and high. That deep fold at the brow line. Two more each side, finding that deep fold, that big chest lift. And knees hug in, we drop back to the mat. Head and neck twist and look right out over that right shoulder. Back to center, head and neck twist left. Moving the head and the neck from side to side. Last one, right and left. And to the mat with knees bent in line with your sit bones. Arms are reaching nice and long. We're going to work into our shoulder bridge, our pelvic curl, which you can do with or without the articulation of the back. On the exhale, tipping the hips back to find that flexion through the low back. We peel up, sending the knees forward towards the front of the foot, creating movement at the ankle so the legs shift forward as the hips lift up. Pausing for that breath or two at the top, and then really working down through the mid-ribs, creating that hollowing and that curling of the spine. As we imprint on and off the mat, one piece, one vertebra at a time. Slowing down your movement, so as you lift and lower, you can pause in places where you feel the sway of the body, or any rotation starting to twist in that would prevent you from finding that even balance from side to side. And we'll curl down, reset, flat to the mat. Legs come to tabletop position, arms reach up towards the ceiling, and on the exhale, the arms lower, we fold the mid-ribs to lift, head, neck, and chest. We pause, so the legs on the next inhale can reach forward, and glide back, and upper body reset. So we're gonna go for 2 full breath cycles, folding and lifting, working each piece of the movement at a time, taking it nice and slow. Nice and smooth movement, deep fold at the mid-ribs. Last one. Feet come back to the mat. Arms nice and long by your side. We'll find that alignment of the feet and the legs with the sit bones. And we're working back into our bridge. You can work it from a pelvic curl or a strict bridge. We're going to tilt back if you're doing your pelvic curl, peeling up off of the mat, coming up to that bridge position. And we're going to hold strong here. Right leg is going to come up to tabletop position, and then we're going to hinge those single leg lowers. Toe tapping the mat. You could do a smaller range or simply hold that right leg up at tabletop. Three, 2, and 1. Foot comes back to the mat. Curl down, reset. Reaching the arms nice and long. And exhale to curl and lift back up. Pausing at the top for a breath. Finding that position and stability and bringing the left leg up to tabletop. And hinging on the inhale and exhale to lift. Maintaining that knee bend. That angle of the knee, so moving just from the hip. Try to keep pressing the hips up as that left leg moves. 3, 2, and 1. Nice and slow as you reset back to the floor. Legs come up to tabletop. We'll draw them in slightly towards the chest, create a little bit of flexion. You can leave that part out if you want to stay in neutral. Hands are going to rest on either side of the knees. We'll fold at the mid-ribs to lift the chest with the head and into our double leg stretch. We're going to add that extra tuck each time just to decompress the low back. On the inhale, arms and legs move away, and arms circle around back to tabletop. Slight little hug of the legs in, bracing through the abdominals. We inhale to open. Reaching longer with the legs, stretching far overhead. Last one. And we'll rock back to the mat. Reaching that right leg straight and long out onto your mat. Draw the left knee towards the chest. And we'll bring it over and across towards that right shoulder. I'm not going to twist or lift on this one today. Just want to feel that stretch along the outside of the leg and in through the hip. This is internal rotation. So if you have a hip replacement or any other condition that would prevent you or restrict you from internal rotation, I would stay away from that cross-body movement. You could always go out towards the shoulder for external rotation versus that cross-body. We'll change legs. Left leg slides out and stretches long. Bring in the right leg, right knee, bent to the chest. Slide the shoulders down, ribs knit in, find that alignment of the spine on your mat. And keeping the weight on the right hip, we take that right leg cross body over to the left shoulder. Shoulders are sliding down and back, breathing into that stretch as the outside of the hip and thigh releases. And back to center. Legs to tabletop, fingers interlace, hands behind the head. We fold and lift, head, neck, and chest, and we move into our crisscross. Right leg moves out as we twist through the chest to the left knee and center. Nice and slow. Reaching out long with the leg. Moving slow so you can keep the weight even from hip to hip. There's no rocking off of the hip as you twist through the mid-ribs. One more each side. And we'll reset to the mat. Arms reach nice and long, back down by your side. Feet are in line with your sit bones, knees are bent. And we're going to bridge once again. Either lifting the hips or curling up off of the mat. We'll come up into our shoulder bridge, pressing the hips up anchoring onto the bottom half of your shoulder blades so you're not extending the upper back. We draw the ribs down, we pull them in, bring the right leg up to tabletop, straighten that right leg up towards the ceiling, and inhale, straight leg lowers, flex at the ankle, and kick up on the exhale. Two more. Bending the knee, bringing the foot back to the mat. We'll curl down, coming back to the mat. Reset, take a moment to realign your body and back up into that bridge. We'll post on that right side, pressing into the right foot, bringing the left leg up to tabletop, extending to the ceiling. Inhale to lower that straight left leg. Flex at the ankle, exhale, kick up. Point and lower. Exhale, kick and lift. 3, 2, and 1. Bending the knee, foot to the mat. Take your time to curl and roll down. And reset to the floor. Legs returning to tabletop, arms reach straight up towards the ceiling. As the arms lower, we lift the head, neck, and chest. Legs reach forward out nice and long. They open and close. Open and close. Reaching the legs straighter and longer. I've got a bit of a turnout. So legs are actually rotated and creating that V position. Heels are coming back together. Three, 2, 1. Knees hug in. Grab the feet. Rock back to the mat. Knees pull apart shoulder width. And we'll rock from hip to hip. Stretching the legs, the hips, the back. Letting the chest and the collarbone knit in. And we'll bend the knees, place the feet flat on the mat. We're going to tilt the hips back and imprint the low back flat against the mat. Now you can always stay out of that flexion. I want to feel as much of my spine and my back connected to the floor, reaching the arms nice and long. I'm going to make a fist. Thumbs up towards the ceiling. And on my inhale, I'm going to reach that right arm up overhead as I flatten the back to the mat. And stretch up. And slow as that right arm lowers, bringing the shoulder back, down and in. And brace and tighten. Left arm reaches up overhead. And back. Staying in my pelvic tilt. As long as there's no reasons that would be a contraindicated position for your spine. We're going to alternate those stretches of the arm up and overhead. One more each side. And slow to reset, back to a neutral spine. Let's roll onto our left side for some side lying leg work. Bottom leg will start bent, head's resting on the bicep. You could always do any of this standing if you don't want to be laying on your side. Starting with floating that right leg just parallel up off of the mat. Drop that right shoulder down and in, and really pull into your abdominals. Engage your core. It's easy for this to get sleepy and kind of quiet. We want to make sure that we keep our core actively engaged and firing while we're working those leg lifts. We lift and lower. Feeling that tension in the core, that knitting of the rib cage, drawing the right shoulder down. Reaching the leg out, stretching it nice and long from the hip. 3, 2, and 1. Taking a moment to once again reset, finding that neutral position in the back and that engagement in the muscles front and back of your body. We kick the leg forward, dorsiflex at the ankle to kick forward, point the toes, reaching that leg back into extension. And here's where we really need to activate the abdominals and the back extensors. So as the leg kicks forward, we need a little bit more back extension so the pelvis doesn't tip forward, we don't curl the low back. And as we move into extension, we need a little bit more abdominal engagement so we don't end up overextending the low back. Last one. And we're going to change our leg position. Right leg will come over and on top in that bent knee position. This is internal rotation, so maybe you need to pad this with a foam roller or a pillow or rolled up towel. We're going to float the bottom left leg up off of the mat and exhale to lift and lower. Right shoulder's drawing down, keeping those core muscles, front and back of the body actively engaged as that bottom left leg lifts and lowers. Left leg is stretching out nice and long. Three, 2, and 1. We're going to stack the legs, and I'm going to start a little bit forward, a little bit of hip flexion, setting the spine, pressing down with this right hand against the mat, and then lifting the legs up, and then we're going to scissor kick, side lying scissor kick. Nice and smooth as you slide and glide the legs forward and back. Trying not to shrug that right shoulder. One more. And we'll press up and flip over onto that right side. Bottom right leg starts bent in that side lying position. Your head is resting on the bicep. Left leg is going to float just parallel to the mat. Drop that left shoulder down, and we lift and lower. Keeping that left leg reaching out long, allowing it to move free in the hip. We're drawing that left shoulder down the back, pulling the rib cage in. 3, 2, and 1. We pause at parallel, dorsiflex at the ankle, pulling the toes towards the shin, and we exhale to kick forward, point the toes, inhale, reach back into extension. Kick reach back. As we kick forward, we need a little bit more engagement in those back muscles, and as we kick back, we need a little bit more activity in those front abdominal muscles to prevent flexion or extension in the spine as that leg moves. 3, 2, last one. And we'll flip our leg position. So top left leg comes in front. Again, add a pad, a pillow, a roller if you want to stay out of that internal rotation. And we're going to float the bottom right leg off of the mat and lift on the exhale and slow to lower. Keeping the abdominals pulled in, good stability in the spine as that bottom right leg moves. And 3, 2, 1. Taking a moment to reset the back, we're going to stack the legs, starting in a little bit of forward flexion. We'll press that left hand down against the mat and we'll lift the legs up. And we're going to work that scissor kick. Trying not to shrug the left shoulder as the legs move. 3, 2, and 1. Resting the legs, flipping over face down. Arms come out to a T position, palms facing the floor as you float your face off of the mat. Little tuck of the tailbone just to decompress the low back. And inhale, we lift the upper body off of the mat, head, neck, and chest, folding out the mid-ribs. And slow to lower on that exhale. Inhale, brace and lift. Legs are reaching out nice and strong, fully active on the mat, so you've got some support with those active legs as the upper body lifts. No dead weight in the arms or the legs as you're working this back extension. Three, 2, 1 more. Hands come by the chest, the toes curl under. We peel up and sit back. Reach back, hips back over the heels. Knees are apart so the chest can drop down between the thighs. And next exhale, we curl up, restack the body, sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. Let's go to a cross-legged position, sitting on our sit bones. You could also go straight leg. Arms are going to reach up overhead, fingers interlaced. We stretch up and we lean over to the right as you weight the left hip down against your mat and center. Stretch up, reach over, anchor the right hip as you hinge to the left, and center. One more each side. Arms come down, and we're going to cross the arms. One arm bringing the left arm cross body. We'll hook with our right and open the chest, sitting taller, stretching longer as we bring that left arm across the chest. And then left arm is going to come up overhead. Bend the elbow. Bring the hand behind the head, the neck, or the back. Grabbing the elbow with your right hand and drawing it across. Sitting up nice and tall. And we unwind. Right arm comes cross body. The left arm comes up and under and hooks. And right arm unwinds, bringing the arm overhead, hand behind the head, neck, or back. Left hand grabs the elbow, brings it across the back of the head, sit up taller. Lifting the head even to push back into the arm for a bigger stretch. And arms rest down by your side. All right, guys. Great work today. Thanks so much.